in the distant future. Mankind has reached the stars, but the galaxy is troubled.
What do you think you're doing? Don't fire!
The Earthsphere Alliance rules the outlying colonies with an iron fist.
I'm sure God would understand the steps we're taking.
Isn't it about time you people realized the ones posing the most threat are none other than yourselves? We've had enough!
Those who oppose them
We won't be needing you any further.
What?
die.
After the alternate universe experiment that was Mobile Fighter G Gundam, Sunrise would once again decide that the Universal Century deserved a bit more of a rest. In 1995, new mobile report Gundam Wing would blast its way onto the TV screens of Japanese homes for a 49-episode run full of moody brooding, nebulous talks of absolute peace, and lots of bangs. And yeah, I mean that both in the gun way and in the hair way. Just look at Trowa's locks. Much like the previous Gundam show, Wing has quite a large ensemble cast, including 5 main characters and the absolute landslide of supporting actors that come and go throughout the series. Gundam Wing sports a seemingly complex world with deep political maneuverings and multiple factions vying for control of the Earth. I gotta say up front that I really do love the look of this show. It has a darker color palette compared to G Gundam or even the original 0079 show, and an absolute immaculate style with golden embellished military uniforms and mechs that are just designed to be cool. Going along with that coolness is a heaping helping of melodrama. Yes, this is the Gundam show where characters endlessly pontificate about peace, what it means to have the heart of a soldier, and whatever absolute pacifism is even supposed to be. Of course, I can't talk about Gundam Wing without talking about the impact that it had on the American anime market. And yes, I'm wearing a Game of Thrones shirt. I bought it during season 1, so shut up. Before Wing, Gundam wasn't really known in the West unless you were the type of person that was willing to track down VHS copies of the various different shows, or you knew someone that was. Yes, at this point in the early 2000s, you may have heard of Gundam through the school anime club, or that one weird guy at the comic book store. But now, Gundam was on TV, baby. And in prime time, too. Every day after school, starting on March the 6th of the year 2000, you could plop down in front of that 23-inch TV with the weird green tint in the corner and ready yourself for some giant mecha action. And while I was more of a G Gundam fan as a kid, you can probably tell that I hold a huge place in my heart for this period of time in general. I mean, go look at my Twitch. Toonami is just my aesthetic. But strangely enough, I've never actually seen Gundam Wing all the way through, so with the perspective of almost 0% nostalgia, let's take a look back at Mobile Suit Gundam Wing and see why kids in the year 2000 were losing their minds.
One more to go.
Our story begins, like all anime, with a banging intro song. Just Communication is a great track, and honestly it actually might be my favorite thing about watching this show. In fact, I don't think I skipped the intro a single time, so good on you, Gundam Wing. In the year after Colony 195, the Earthsphere Alliance rules both Earth and space with an iron fist. Utilizing an elite corps of mobile suit pilots known as the Specials, the Alliance military restricts travel and even communication between the colonies. After having their autonomy stifled by the Alliance, along with having their peace-loving leader Hiro Yui assassinated, radical actors in the colonies begin a 20-year-long plan to take their revenge. When the fateful day in year 195 finally rolls around, 5 Gundams descend to Earth to take part in Operation Meteor, a campaign of destruction that aims to wrench control of the Earth away from the aristocratic elite that are currently in control. Hiro Yui is one of the pilots tasked with this mission. not the guy that was assassinated. He's different. This guy's just named after that guy. Yep, that's exactly what it is. While descending through the Earth's atmosphere, Hero tangles, literally, with the legally required Char clone Zex Marquise. Eventually, they do make it planetside, with Hero having to abandon his Wing Gundam underneath the ocean waves. The audience is introduced to the other 4 Gundams in all their destructive glory, and I do have to say that the designs of not only the Gundams, but also the grunt suits in this show are pretty great. I actually really like the Leo, even though I think it's not up there with the Zaku 2 in all-time great mecha designs, but its orange face and big machine gun gets bonus points from me. But really, the best thing about this show is the goddamn tall geese. Look at this thing, pure perfection. The best suit for a Char clone to fly so far. Hero enrolls in a fancy pants school that includes activities such as riding horses, croquet, and being really creepy. Look, I just gotta say it because we're about to be introduced to her, but Relena is a creepy ass character. Her vibes are just off. She's always staring, and even though she's supposed to be like 15, she carries herself with the air of a 17th century countess, which I suppose isn't that far off the mark because she's the daughter of a high-ranking Alliance official, Vice Minister Darlane. For some reason, Relena is intrigued by Hero after seeing him wash up on the beach and almost die. She invites him to her birthday party, and I think this scene just perfectly articulates the feel of this entire show.
It's an invitation to my birthday tomorrow. I hope you'll be able to make it to the party. But why?
I'll kill you.
Everything is just so melodramatic. I love that all Relena's friends stand around and clap for her too. Just what a weird scene. Unfortunately for both of them, Hero being an antisocial weirdo just makes Relena all the more attracted to him, and now she feels the need to just follow him around and stick her nose in his business. The Gundams go about attacking strategic Alliance bases on the Earth, and Hero receives a transmission with orders to attack an Alliance weapons cache. It's on this mission that we meet Duo Maxwell, the pilot of Gundam Death Scythe, who dresses like a priest that's about to participate in the Kentucky Derby. Jokes aside, Duo is the best character in the show, because big spoilers, he's really the only main character that's likable. Hero is funny to watch be edgy and dumb, but I'm never rooting for him. The other pilots all suffer from similar issues as well. Catra is sort of boring, and any potentially interesting arcs with him are just sort of squandered. Troa's pretty cool, and one of the only characters to actually try and like trick people and be smart. And Wu Fei is sort of the worst, actually. The dude sort of belongs on an alpha male podcast instead of in the cockpit. He's super brash, never wants to work with everyone, calls everyone a weakly while simultaneously running from any responsibility until like episode 46. He's just not great, is what I'm saying. Duo and the Death Scythe retrieve the wing, and Hero attempts to blow it up with the torpedoes from the Alliance base. This is a running theme not only with Hero, but with most of the pilots. They will try to blow up their Gundams at some point. It happens a lot. This show's breakneck pace in the opening arc really helped me to get drawn in. For the first 5 or 10 episodes, so much stuff is happening that they have to bring in a narrator to introduce us to Treize Khushrenada, the leader of the Specials and the Order of the Zodiac within the Alliance. Also known as Oz, this organization is an elite unit backed by something known as the Romefeller Foundation, a group of rich old aristocrats seeking power for themselves. The opening arc of Wing sort of goes on with the pilots attacking targets while the world is methodically introduced to the viewer. Treize is just a really interesting villain early on. You can tell he's like a conniving schemer, and he works really closely with his subordinate, Lady Une. Wing wastes no time in having Treize start to orchestrate a coup, and one of the opening actions that's taken is to assassinate Relina's father, along with several other high-ranking Alliance officials. Of course, Relina is pretty pissed about this and even tries to assassinate members of Oz out of anger. While her father is on his deathbed, he tells her that her real name is Relina Peacecraft, and that her real father was the late king of a country known as the Sank Kingdom. The Sank Kingdom was destroyed by the Earth Alliance, and its rulers murdered, even though the kingdom only strove for peace. Relina also meets the enigmatic Dr. J, one of the scientists behind Operation Meteor, and the man responsible for creating the Wing Gundam. Here we learn the important detail of Hero's past, including the fact that Hero is just a codename. The original Hero Yui was a peace-seeking leader of the colonies who was assassinated by the Alliance during their colonial crackdown. Unfortunately, we don't learn much more about Hero's backstory, or anyone's backstory for that matter. Yes, if you want to learn more about Hero, Duo, or God forbid, Wu Fei, you'll have to read either Mobile Suit Gundam Wing Glory of the Losers or Mobile Suit Gundam Wing Zero. Honestly, this became a huge detriment to my enjoyment of Wing as a whole. I don't mind reading a companion manga, but these were released years after Wing's initial run, and I don't feel like it's a huge ask to have the main characters' backstories explained somewhere in that 49 episode run. So while I appreciate that we eventually did get a better look into who these characters are, it really should have been included in the main series, especially when there's so much in Gundam Wing that just feels like a huge waste of time. The opening ultimately culminates in an assault on the Alliance base at New Edwards. As the Gundam pilots attack the base, they're unaware that Field Marshal Noventa, a high-ranking Alliance official with tons of political influence, is lobbying towards peace with the colonies and demilitarization of the Alliance. The high-ranking officials are evacuated, notably with the peace-seeking members all loaded onto one shuttle. During the escape, Hero attacks and destroys the shuttle, and this is the first step towards the ascendance of Oz. Treize, as the head of the organization, takes his place as leader of the New Alliance forces and launches a campaign to win the loyalty of the space colonies. In their plan to rule both space and Earth, Oz decides to go to the colonies in peace, offering to right the wrongs of the former alliance by letting the colonies resume trade, travel, and have more independence. This scheme is actually sort of smart, and even involved tricking an Alliance general into declaring war, then killing him and using that as a reason to take control. It's stuff like this that makes Treize an enjoyable villain, and overall just fun to watch. Not knowing what to do at this point, the Gundam pilots continue carrying out missions, ultimately attacking a transportation route in Siberia. It's here that Hero duels Zex in his newly refurbished Tallgeese. Man, the Tallgeese is awesome. It looks like a big knight, and it's so powerful it just kills most pilots. During the duel, Lady Une decides to threaten the destruction of a space colony using the Arsenal of Space Fortress barge. Also, let me add in that I found out that in the Japanese version, barge is called Space Fortress Bulge, and while I'm not usually a fan of changing names and references to things in localizations, that was probably a really good change, I'll be honest. Dr. J allows himself to be taken into custody by the Alliance, and the Gundam pilots retreat, knowing that they can't allow a colony to be blown up. Hero's way of doing this is a little dramatic, much like the entirety of this series. Hero blows up the Wing Gundam and himself, but survives because, as we'll see, an exploding Gundam in this series is one of the least lethal things that happens. Hero wakes up a month later under the care of a traveling circus. I've tried so many times to get that line out without laughing, and that's as good as I can do it. Trowa calls his collection of wanderers and literal clowns home, and he takes Hero in. We learn that over the time jump, Oz has pretty much completely taken over the Alliance and now has its sights set on space. In this time, Zechs has become almost obsessed with his rival Hero and goes so far as to gather up all the pieces of the blown up Wing Gundam and rebuild it. That's one thing that's funny about this show. When the Gundams self-destruct, they kind of just blow apart instead of actually being fully destroyed, which seems counterproductive. The Tallgeese is essentially the blueprint for modern suits, including all of the super advanced Gundams, so Zechs is able to rebuild Wing using spare parts from it. He even goes so far as building a second Wing Gundam to blow up as a dummy when Oz demands he get rid of it. Trowa and Hero are brought to Antarctica to duel Zechs, and it seems like a great idea since Oz won't know where they are. Except, surprise, Oz totally knows exactly what they're doing and shows up to interrupt, requiring Trowa to fight them off. Also, it's important to note that Hero uses the heavy arms in this duel and Trowa uses the wing. It's interesting that the pilots swap out sometimes in this show. Relena shows up to stop the battle between Hero and Zechs, and it's revealed that not only is Zechs actually Milliardo Peacecraft, heir to the Sank Kingdom, but also Relena's brother. Zechs ends up surrendering so that Relena and Noin can escape safely from Oz troops, with Hero and Trowa also escaping as well. We then see that Lady Une is a diplomat to the colonies, trying to get them to agree to Oz's presence in space. They do this weird thing with Une where she's got this split personality now. It's sort of confusing because this is episode 17 and we haven't seen a hint of this yet. So to have her switch between being this hardline military bitch to a soft-spoken nice lady is really jarring. And it comes off as something that wasn't completely thought out. Catra gets into a battle and eventually detonates the Gundam Sandrock, which he initially wants to do while he's inside it, but the Gundams in the show display a low level of communication with the pilots, and it makes him get out. We eventually learn that Catra is the son of an influential colonial family, and when Oz kills his dad, he kinda snaps and goes a bit crazy. Luckily for him, he discovered the plans for the Wing Zero in his family computer, and then he just builds it off screen somewhere, somehow. I don't think it says. The next time Catra shows up, he's completely crazy due to something called the Zero System, which is a system built into the Wing Zero, which increases the skills of the pilot while decreasing their humanity and free will. So Catra ends up blowing up an entire colony with the Zero's giant laser gun, but I guess it was evacuated first. This show barely brings it up again, and I guess if the show doesn't care, neither do I. The 5 Gundam engineers are all captured and brought to a lunar base by Lady Une. Here they're forced to create mobile suits that are superior to the Gundams, and they come up with the suits Mercurius and V8. These two suits are actually pretty awesome, with one focusing on defense and the other focusing on offense. We even get to see later how this tech is used in new suits, specifically the Mercurius's shield, which gets used quite a bit later on. Along with these suits is a new concept introduced by Oz, the Mobile Dolls. These are essentially just unmanned drone suits, and they serve as a wedge that's driven between Treize and the Rockefeller Foundation. We also find that Trowa has come up to space and joined Oz's colonial recruits in order to infiltrate the organization. He actually ends up capturing Hero and convinces them to let him be a test pilot for the V8. Eventually, the plan goes awry and they end up escaping back to Earth, deciding to find Relena. Trowa explodes during a fight with the crazed Catra, hoping that his sacrifice will bring Catra back to his sanity. At this point, it might just seem like I'm saying things that just happen one after another, but that's just sort of how this show is. Characters just do stuff, specifically in this midpoint of the show where they are no longer receiving orders from the scientists behind Operation Meteor. It's actually one of my main problems with the show. Everyone drifts around doing different things while Relena's quest to rebirth the Sank Kingdom becomes the main focus for a fairly big chunk of time. And honestly, I just hate all the crap that has to do with the Sank Kingdom. We see Relina as the head of this academy for young women that sit around and talk about peace. And this is where this series goes completely off the rails with like 9th grade level philosophy that makes zero logical sense when you think about it for more than 5 seconds. But Gundam Wing presents it as this big brain idea that no one can understand. If I have to listen to another 8-minute diatribe about absolute pacifism, where Relina pushes the idea that they need to literally just not defend themselves from the power-hungry military organization that's on their doorstep, well, I'll self-destruct, let's put it that way. So yeah, Relina becomes a large focus and runs a school, I guess. It really comes off as her just surrounding herself with an echo chamber too. That is, until the arrival of Dorothy Catalonia, the character with the least trustworthy eyebrows that I've ever seen. Relina automatically trusts Dorothy, even though she says incredibly creepy things like, "I love war, war is beautiful," and lets her get close, even calling her a great friend. Eventually, Hiro and Catra wander their way over to the Sank Kingdom, where they decide to fight for the country. Oz attacks a small group of rebel forces hiding in the southern region of the kingdom, using it as a pretense to invade the nation. Hiro defends them and saves Relina, but this whole time she's being super annoying, telling everyone not to fight. And at a certain point, someone should have slapped the 15-year-old with the 8th grade philosophy education and taken charge, because Relina's solution to being invaded is just to do nothing. When Oz tells her to dissolve the kingdom or else, she's just like, yeah, alright, then gives up, and then becomes a prisoner of Oz. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, let me tell you about Zek's character arc, and what he's been doing for about 20 or so episodes, because it's vitally important to the end of the show. After his duel with Hiro, Zechs isn't exactly in the good graces of the Romefeller Foundation. Not only did he rebuild the Wing Gundam instead of destroying it, he then lied about it and let Hiro escape. Treize prepared to intervene on behalf of his friend and tell the Foundation to let it go, as Zechs had been a loyal soldier and great asset so far. Unfortunately, the Foundation had already sent troops to destroy Zechs in a battle against impossible odds, but Zechs, being the badass that he is, escapes the battle after fighting off most of the Alliance soldiers. His mask even shatters in a symbolic moment where he realizes he's no longer friends with Treize and no longer a member of Oz. The next time we see him, he has renounced his fake identity and goes by Ambassador Miliardo Peacecraft from the Sank Kingdom, fulfilling the role of advisor to the colonies wishing to become independent. This lasts for like 2 or 3 episodes before we go right back to Masked Zechs, because I guess he didn't want that character development yet. Zechs finally receives the Wing Zero after abandoning and destroying the Tallgeese. He hurries to the Sank Kingdom when he finds out that it will be attacked by Oz, but finds out that he's too late. Zechs fights a battle against Hiro, who's piloting Gundam Epion, a brand new suit built by Treize and given to Hiro with basically no strings attached. Epion is absolutely awesome, by the way. It's got a dragon motif and transforms like the Wing. I really enjoy its design. And after the duel, Hiro says the Epion would suit Zechs better, and they trade suits. So now, the Gundam pilots are scattered to the winds. Troa is back at the circus, but has amnesia. Wu Fei went back to his colony that blows up for some fucking reason. Oz has pretty much positioned itself to control all of space under the guise of peace, even though they plan to bring any non-compliant colonies to heel with force. Duke Dumail of the Romefeller Foundation realizes that without a charismatic leader like Treize, they're doomed to fail, so his plan is to prop Relina up as Queen of Earth, because the Sank Kingdom was just so successful. Relina begrudgingly accepts, hoping that she can push the Foundation towards peace. Hiro hears that Relina has become a tool for the Foundation, and he goes to kill her, only hesitating to pull the trigger when he realizes that she's pushing for total pacifism. Somehow, Relina is able to convince a group of Foundation members to go along with her plan just in time for a new faction to come into play. A man named Cans introduces us to the White Fang, a group of colonial radicals that plan to take over the Earth. Cans is also one of the original engineers of the Tallgeese and Peace Million, as well as one of the people responsible for the original version of Operation Meteor. So, yeah, originally Project Meteor was less let's send Gundams to Earth to attack military targets, and more let's crash a meteor into the planet to cause an eternal winter. The other members of Operation Meteor, I guess, decided that was a little too extreme and went with Plan B instead. Cans seems to still have a chip on his shoulder about that, and he approaches a very depressed Milliardo and asks him to be the leader of White Fang. Treize gets tired of sitting in a basement and makes his full return, deposing Queen Relina and becoming the new sovereign of the United Earth government. Yeah, Relina being queen was pretty half-baked, and it only lasted a few episodes. She then becomes a political prisoner as she travels to the White Fang's huge battleship Libra to try and talk Milliardo out of his plan. Of course, this doesn't work, and Relina spends the majority of the final arc stuck in a room aboard Libra, until Heero comes to save her. Finally, we get to see the Gundam team come together as a unit, which is something that I feel should have happened way earlier. The final battle comes to a head at the space battleship Libra, as Milliardo's ultimate plan is not to use its giant laser cannon, but to crash it into Earth. Wu Fei gets a rematch with Treize, where Treize jumps into Wu Fei's weapon or something. What actually happens is kind of confusing, but Wu Fei doesn't seem happy about it. What the heck? What are you whining about, Wu Fei? Don't you know that people die if they are killed? Heero and Milliardo fight a final duel, and Heero ends up on top, with Milliardo conceding and attacking the Peace Million's engine. Oh yeah, the Peace Million gets rammed into the Libra at one point, but the plan doesn't work. Heero then enters Earth's atmosphere and is almost cooked while he destroys the remaining segment of the ship that's hurtling towards Earth. For once in his life, Heero decides he wants to live and successfully saves the day, flying back to rejoin the others on the way to a brighter future. Alright, wow, that whole script was a mouthful. Whew. So I think it goes without saying that I didn't really love this show. In fact, I think from a storytelling and character standpoint, it's just not very good. Sure, there are characters I enjoy like Treize and Zechs in the first half, but it doesn't make up for how poorly written a lot of the other members of the cast are. Relina in particular is really grating, as her ideas and philosophies are presented as these grand big brain ideas, but in reality they're just kind of dumb. Like, yeah, Relina, I'm not shocked that people don't want to completely disarm themselves when there's a group of soldiers destroying everyone with drones around the globe. Relina and Heero's relationship is just a big fat nothing burger and can be summed up as such. Heero! Relina. Look, when the two characters that are the driving romantic force of the show have interactions that really just sum up to looking out windows and mumbling each other's names under their breath, man, it just does not make for a great romantic subplot. And when the two get together at the end, I don't buy it. Also, there are a bunch of storylines that just don't matter or don't go anywhere. Catra possibly being a new type is hinted at early on and just goes away by the end. Heero is seen surviving near fatal injuries multiple times, and a character even alludes to the fact that his DNA isn't completely human, alluding to the fact that he's some sort of super soldier that's been genetically engineered, and at one point he bends metal bars when he's breaking Duo out of prison. But this is just literally never explained within the confines of Wing's 49 episodes. I just think it kind of sucks that there are these characters that I do think are outwardly interesting, but have no depth because we never learn anything about them. That being said, the design of the show is top-notch. All the Gundams are unique and pretty cool. You've gotta love that military fashion. The show is just so moody, and I think if you wanted to encapsulate the feeling of late 90s / early 2000s, any frame of Gundam Wing will do. The action, on the other hand, isn't always the best, and a lot of the animation is reused, but hey, you get to see Death Scythe do cool shit, so it can't be all that bad. Now, with the question of whether or not you should sit down and watch Wing, honestly, it's a tough sell, I think. If you have nostalgia for the show, I definitely see where your enjoyment comes from. I mean, I just gushed about G Gundam in a 35-minute long video 2 weeks ago, so I totally get it. But for a new viewer, it was a little tough to get through for me. But if you have a high tolerance for a lot of 90s dialogue and politics that seem complicated but are just kind of dumb, then, you know, there is something of value in Wing. Thank you all for watching this video. I really hope that if you're a Wing fan, I didn't piss you off too much, as that's never my intention. Of course, if you love this show, that's great. I don't fault you for liking it. We just have different tastes. Next up will be Gundam Wing Endless Waltz, and yeah, I'm gonna break the release order rule for Gundam videos and do 8th MS Team right after that. So be on the lookout for the follow-up to Wing that, from what I've been told, does a much better job at telling a complete story. See you then! Wow, that was quite a video. If you made it this far, welcome to the end card. I forgot to put an end card on the G Gundam video, I think. Whoops! Thank you for being a fucking star. If you made it this far, you get a gold star from me, for sure. Again, sorry if I pissed you off. Wing is definitely cool. I don't usually feel like I'm this critical on the things I watch, but like, man, it just, so much of it just grated on my nerves. But I can definitely see the upsides and why people might like it, especially if you grew up with it. Like, you know, like, there's nothing wrong with nostalgia watching stuff, which is kind of the vibe I get from a lot of people that like Wing. Anyway, I did want to add into the script that I was super fucking tired of seeing Relina's giant-ass clown feet at the end of every episode during the outro, but I couldn't work that into the script in a way I felt was appropriate, so here it is in the end card. Coming up is Gundam Wing Endless Waltz is next week. Then we have Vision of Escaflowne, which was part of the community poll, which is really awesome, and I'm excited for that video as well. And then, of course, we'll have 8th MS Team, which is one of my favorite pieces of Gundam media that I've seen, so that will be exciting too. In other news, the channel's doing really fucking well. The G Gundam video, I think, just hit 15,000 views as of the recording of this voiceover, and I'm about to hit 2,000 subs. I'm incredibly excited about that. I never thought I'd hit that shit, like, that's for sure. So yeah, thank you to all you guys. You make this possible. This is incredibly fun. I have no plans on stopping anytime soon unless Bandai breaks into my house with a sharp Gunpla and rams it up my ass or something. I don't know. I'm feeling really vulgar on this end card today. It's going long too. So alright, I will see you guys next time. Bye.